Good morning. This is Norma Cowie with you once more for a Sunday Talks. Now, actually, it's a Sunday thought, not a talk. That shows you I'm still a little bit out of sorts here. Last week, if you watched the show, several things happened. I wasn't feeling very well at all. In fact, that was probably the worst day I was feeling for the last week. And oh boy, I messed up all over the place. Besides kind of talking, because I really always feel committed. If I say I'm going to do something, I get committed. And what I ended up doing, instead of pushing end broadcast, I just had leave studio, and then realized and wondered how I was going to get back. And thank goodness even though I know my talk was around 8 minutes, it went on. They kept recording, I guess, the blackness, and I couldn't figure out what to do or whatever. Felt terrible, as I explained. So today I'm feeling a lot better. I'm much happier in so many ways. But the whole events of the week, and a nice little, again, card, which talks about compassion. And if you're a little like me, I won't say like me exactly, but if you're a little like me, you can be very critical of yourself. It's like somehow rather you set this high bar that you're supposed to be perfect in all things. And of course, we're not. At least I'm not. I learned a long time ago I wasn't. And that's one of the things that we need to do, is have compassion, not only for ourselves, but for others. So what are we doing? Are we empathizing? Are we sympathizing? I found sympathy sometimes isn't always as effective, but we can empathize. If you have life's experience, I think at a certain age, you've got a certain amount of experience behind you, and you can understand how a certain event or a situation feels, or you have an idea if that person is anything like you, what they're going to go through. And so you can have compassion for a situation. I certainly, as a psychic tarot card reader, in particular, have to have a certain amount of compassion and understanding. And even though I'm working often to have people see different perspectives or alternatives or awarenesses, I can also understand how they can be. But I don't want them to stay in sadness, or I don't want them to stay in depression. If there's a way they can change that and do something different. But if we don't have compassion, what do we have? Upon further thought of that was judgment. See, I know it is easy for me to criticize myself, which means actually I'm in judgment of myself. I'm not this enough or that enough or whatever. And it would be nice to be able to create a weight loss program that I can stay on. All these little things, and until I just explain acceptance of self, of who you are and what you are and where you're going. Judgment is a strange thing, because we're always assessing whatever is against some criteria that was put on. It can be put on by appearance, it could be put on by society, it can be put on by all sorts of different things that go on. And the key here, really a strong sense, I feel anyway, is that you need to have compassion for yourself first. Like, have you looked into the mirror lately and said, I love you? Have you looked into the mirror lately and said, I understand you? Have you looked into the mirror lately and said, you're absolutely okay? There comes a point of time, I think, where we need to accept who we are totally and 100%. We are who we are. We're a product of decisions we've made. We're a product of what our parents have told us. We have products of what society tells us. And most of us work just to survive in this crazy world, especially right now, this crazy world. I've been very, very fortunate in this life. And even though I left my family and came to Canada at 18, which is pretty young, really, when you're stretching out. And everyone thought I could not possibly leave New Zealand. All my friends, how can you leave your mother? They always saw me as a mummy's girl, which is probably very, very true, because my mom had me quite elderly, and I had a younger brother, still after me. And it was difficult. It was a difficult time period. And it took a long time of adjustment. And then I had a baby, and then I had to deal with that as well, and work and understand. And luckily, my husband then, my then husband, was very, very good. We spent 24 years together, so we got to know each other really well. We grew up together. And I still get the privilege of being able to see him from time to time. Now, maybe I've strayed a little bit from compassion. Today, I'm a little earlier in my talk than I usually am, and that is because I am driving nearly an hour to pick up a friend who's returning from Vancouver on the one bus that now travels through it doesn't come into our town. So I willingly drive her to pick the bus up so she can go and visit her I'm going to say adopted daughter, her lady that she considers her daughter. And I just got a text the other day saying, can you pick me up on this? I'm coming in back home. So that is absolutely a-okay, because I don't want to leave her sitting on the roads in a little town, sitting on the road waiting. So a friend and I are going to go in. We're going to earlier into the town. We're going to have breakfast. We're going to then wait for her and then bring her back where she belongs, which is with us back here. And that's what life is about. How do we do for each other? Do we have, and I'm going to place this with compassion, although really it is a sense of, I want to be able to be helpful. I like being helpful. It's something that I really like. I've done a lot of organizing in my years of different events and situations, but it's the same thing as to be able to help one person if they can. Now, becoming an older citizen brings with it a whole different element of compassion and awareness, and especially with the work that I do. I'm just going to make one little comment here. I recently I'm trying to think of actually how to say this. That's what happens when you just talk and you don't have a prepared script. I recently did a reading for a person, and it was nearly towards the end I realized that this person had no real philosophy of life. They did not have a belief system about anything too much, really. That could rattle off all the things that she knew. And I tried to explain that those were tools to help you understand who you are. But there is that other step. There is that step further, that you understand the cosmos, you understand your place in this whole world, and that you have compassion for yourself and the realization of who you are. We need a philosophy. How do we get through all the tough stuff if we don't have a philosophy? How do we support ourselves if we don't have a philosophy? And I've changed subtopics a little bit. I see that often happens when I just talk. And so I really want you to think, as my time that I usually allot for these begins to get closer, is that I want you to think about, are you compassionate to yourself? Do you accept yourself for who you are totally and love yourself for that? Do you know who you are in your philosophical framework? What are your belief systems? Do you believe in life after death? Do you believe in reincarnation? Do you believe that there is more to this whole universe than we can ever imagine? There's many, many things. Or do you sit in judgment on yourself, not being good enough, could have done it better, all of those judgmental elements? Because if you are doing that, not only are you making your life hard and giving yourself a bad time, you are not having compassion for yourself. And how can you have compassion for other people out in the world if you do not have it for yourself, first and foremost? And that today is my Sunday thought. Take a look at your life. Are you being compassionate to you and to others? Or are you sitting in judgment? I trust you are compassionate. I want to thank you, as this time I will press the end broadcast button. I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank you for your likes. I want to thank you for your comments and your subscriptions. Bless you. Next week.